Hello, and welcome to the Online Wine Tasting Club. One of these days, Jamie falling off that bench is going to cease to amuse me, but today is not that day.
Apparently not. Apparently not. The important things in wine tastings is to fall off the bench at Oxley, and
Quite
shall
right.
forever be that. We'll do this for another 15 years, and I'll still be falling
You
off
will
that
be
bench.
still falling off.
Well,
Yep.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. As always, let us know what you want to hear about in the chat. Lovely to see you. Oh, we've got sound. We've got evening all. Two things before we start. Colin, if you're watching, you cannot win the quiz this month. Banned, done, whatever. So try your best. But what we're going to talk about today? We're going to talk about rivers. So we've got a vast selection of wines, a wide range of wines, and we're going to talk a little bit about the wines, where they come from, what they were, and why rivers are so important in the life of the wine trade, and how it makes the wine taste, how it helps the grapes grow, the history behind it, and all those kind of good things. But what we need to do first is we need to make sure we get wine number one in the glass. And while I do that, Alex is going to tell you all about Slido and tasting notes and all that kind of good stuff.
So for those of you who haven't joined us before, you can scan this code or go to towtc.co.uk/taste. And we would be delighted if you'd pop in your tasting notes and tell us what you think it tastes like. Because it's all very well us sitting here going, you've got hints of citrus and hints of lime and all of these wonderful things, but it's much more interesting hearing what you see, because everyone has a different palate. Everyone finds different things. They've all got different cultural sort of context to their tasting notes. So if you ask a person from Thailand what a wine tastes like, they'll come up with completely different tasting notes to what somebody from a Western culture would. So yeah, pop your tasting notes in. We will move that on to wine number one now. Why not? Why don't we do that? And we are starting predictably with a Riesling.
You say predictably. You say predictably like it's all down to me. So we're starting in Germany, and we're starting with Riesling, and we are on the Rhine River. So the region is Rheingau, two real main rivers. And once I turn around and go, other rivers do exist, but two of the big ones that we really need to know about in Germany are the Rhine and the Moselle. They're probably the two big ones that we need to think about. So this is, and we've done a lot with our good friends at Dr. Lucen recently, so I thought let's move on to a slightly different river. So we've got the Schloss Volratz Riesling. So
She's right. She's right.
Oh, my word.
Yep.
We're starting with top tips at this time of the day.
And the Moselle does actually join the Rhine as well, so it's all kind of part of the same interconnecting series of rivers, but they're really dramatic places. Pop a comment in the chat if you've been to the Rhine, and especially you can take these wonderful cruises up and down and visit some of these regions and see the vineyards. They're really cool to see.
They are epic. It's one of the things that you talk about. You go, there's really, really steep slate soil vineyards, and you don't understand how steep that is until you actually go there. I was out there last year, and you go, oh, and I tell the story about how much a bottle of wine should cost. And people go, you can buy a bottle of wine for £6, something like that, and you go, you're on these hills like 45 degrees at least.
Yeah.
And you go, these people have to walk up, walk down, hand harvest, bring all the grapes out. And I'm like, I would be wanting a lot more than £6 for my bottle of wine if I was doing that day in, day out. I'll tell you that for nothing.
And there's the standard set of equipment which people normally use to farm a vineyard if they're in, I don't know, let's say somewhere in Australia where it's a big flat piece of land, and you just use giant tractors to go up and down and to spray 3 rows at a time and to harvest and to do all sorts of mechanical sort of work in the vineyards that you just can't do in the Rhine. But they have their own set of tools. And I was sat there watching it. I was in Würzburg in the Franken region, which I think we've got a nice little photo of on page 3 of the brochure. This was one of the pics I took. It was quite steep going up to there. I was fairly out of breath by the top of it. But there were this selection of machinery which was basically getting winched up and down the rows of the vines, because you needed to have something to help the people out while they were going and maintaining the vines. And at that particular point, they were doing a lot of leaf stripping from the fruit area, which is a really important bit of viticulture when you're dealing with rivers. But and why is that? Well, because there's a bit of damp around. So if you have lots and lots of leaves kind of shading around the grapes where they're growing, it tends to trap that moisture in. And yes, it's helped by quite often you get a little bits of breeze going down the river valleys, but it's still you want to try to get that airflow in there and help the berries dry out and not rot, which is you can either do by spraying it with various things, or you can do it by trying to give it a bit of aeration. So that's a very manual, laborious task, and there are some really cool tools you can get in a kind of a more conventional vineyard, where basically it's almost like a kind of like a Dyson Hoover that fits onto the side of your tractor. It's on a big long arm that sticks out, and there's a fan that sort of sucks the air in, and then it just rips the leaves off so it can go along a row at the kind of the fruit's height, which there's a particularly thick wire that's called the fruiting wire, though, where you tend to train the vine along. And yeah, you're trying to strip out all of that foliage, get a bit of light onto the grapes, also to try to do that. But yeah, they were doing that process with this extraordinary thing. People were in harnesses, and it was. Yeah, it looked hard. There's a great episode of the Wine Show actually, where Joe Fattorini has to lug stuff up and down on these slopes, and he definitely earned his money that day. But and this is the classic. This is the classic thing for the Rheingau region. You see these little pockets of vineyards kind of hugging around the slopes of the river. Really tiny plots.
Yeah, and lots of little plots and a bit here, and you'll see there'll be like a vineyard site, and lots of different wineries will have a little bit of each vineyard, so they're all kind of doing that. So yeah, really laborious, lots going on there. But these guys are one of the oldest.
Acid.
These guys are one of the oldest estates in, well, Germany at least, if not all of wine. Really, we're 1200s. These guys started to make wine, and I just and these were the first people to make a cabinet style of Riesling. So I just think this kind of sits.
So what's a cabinet style of Riesling for the people at home? Is that one that you keep in your cabinet? No, you should always drink it. I assume that Mr. Riesling will say.
Gone already.
Let's have a look at the label here.
So when we talk about cabinet, that is when we go, without me getting too overly geeky, unless people want me to get overly geeky, when we talk about the sweetness levels in the Predicat system, cabinet is the driest of the quality levels. So you go cabinet, spit laissé, auslese, etc., as you go up the level of sweetness. And that's almost, it's not how sweet it is, it's how sweet it could be.
I'm sorry, I didn't have any tasting notes, Father. Let me. We've got a copy there. I will email them through to you now while Jamie talks wine to you.
Absolutely, Alex is on the case.
On the case.
So these guys. Where do we go? So you've got the quality system in Germany that you can have Qualitätswein, and that kind of where you can be potential sweetness, how much sugar is in the grape when it's picked. So what you need to look at, there's two things that you want to look at, is the quality level and that sweetness level, and then you want to look at your alcohol percentage, because if you have a cabinet and it's 8% alcohol, it's going to be much sweeter than if you have a cabinet and it's 12% alcohol, like this one, because
a bit of a nightmare for us to repack.
Yes, because you've gone from obviously the sugar is being turned into alcohol. So when you're going through German Rieslings, it's important to look at not only the level of this up, whether it's the Spätlese, Auslese, that kind of stuff. Also look at the alcohol percentage. And if you put those two together, you'll kind of get an idea of where your sweetness level might sit, if that makes sense. So should we have a quick look at the taste notes, see how everyone's getting on with this.
I like the blossom there.
So what have we got? We've got blossom, we've got lemon, we've got peach, we've got honeysuckle, and this is a dry Riesling, but it's not overly zippy. It's got lovely acidity, but sometimes you get these dry styles Riesling that your eyes start watering because it's just linear and lime and mineral, and that's all there is. This has got some really nice weight, some really nice mouthfeel, some really nice kind of like lush fruits in there. And I think for those who've been on here for a while, you know that Riesling is my go-to. If in doubt, drink more Riesling. But this just offers itself out for anything. You can just sit and drink this because it's lovely. But with food, this would go with something spicy. Like Thai food, anything with lemongrass, anything that's got that kind of fragrant style to it, any level of spice. I think there's a lot of good fun stuff that you can have with this. But for me, yeah, lots of peaches, lemon, apricot, and once again, you can see there's lots of different styles of flavour here. You know, when we talk about the WSET clusters, we've got, you know, the citrus cluster with the lemon and lime. We've got the tree fruit cluster with the green apples. We've got the stone fruits with the peach, and then we've got some tropical bits and pieces in there as well. So it's really exciting to, you know, kind of show that level of, you know, complexity with this wine.
I'm getting some like kind of sherbet, sort of zingy notes to it as well. Like,
and the other bit about, you know, Germany, when we talk about rivers, is what's really important is Germany is, you know, you're going quite far north as far as wine growing was. And and I say traditionally because when I was out there, it was 30 degrees every day. It wasn't cold. You go, oh, Germany, wine growing region, cool climate. And it really wasn't that cool. But it used to be. And what they had is the grapes shouldn't have really ripened. But where they were planted on these hillside slopes next to the river, you'd have the sunlight come down, and they get a little bit of sunlight, and then it would be reflecting off the waterways and coming back up. So you've got
quite useful.
Double the sun, double the fun.
Yeah, double the sun, double the fun.
Is what I heard anyway.
Yeah.
So that's really important in those kind of regions, that you can have enough canopy that, you know, it protects it from the sunlight coming down, but then it comes back up and you can get underneath, so you can get an evening of your ripening. So
yeah. And you know, it really is quite a warm place in the middle of the summer, and it's quite a surprise. I did dragon boating on the river, just off one of the tributaries of the Rhine once. That was, and we got very, very hot indeed. It was an entertaining day out, but this is just a really good classic example, isn't it, of that Rheingau style. Now, how would you compare this if we were going to sort of let's take it to the other side of the world, like to a Clare Valley Riesling, you know, somewhere which doesn't get that river kind of influence as much, and
so it's tough, isn't it? It's tough because so much more, and I've been going on, not gonna lie, old world versus new world is going out the window, doesn't it? It's not going to matter for much longer.
For Riesling, it probably is still quite.
But a lot of it is about what the winemaker wants to do. So when I make these comments, it's very generic. But the Clare Valley Riesling is that really austere, steely, minerally, like catches you right here kind of style. Like, you know, we're getting down to like next to nothing with residual sugar, like as dry as you could, bone dry, high acid, beautiful freshness, wonderful wines.
But still with the real fruit character to it, isn't it?
But more of the lemony, limey kind of thing, and you're not getting as much of the apricot-y, the stone fruit. The German wine for me has more mouthfeel, more texture. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, I think obviously we've got all these notes in front of you, but the climate moderation is a really big sort of characteristic of it. So when you've got this big sort of heat sink and heat source of water, it absorbs that. It absorbs all of that heat in the daytime, and you know, water. It's not just a question of the water warming up, but it evaporates, of course, and then sort of moves away. So you're really, compared to a big sort of stony field like you might get in, I don't know, say Left Bank Bordeaux, it really does. Although that has a river as well, but
left bank.
But yes, it's helping just to keep the worst extremes of the temperature, and you know it does get very hot on some of those days. So having that there can protect the grapes from a vine that gets too hot will get really, really stressed. It sort of starts heading up sort of north of 40 degrees, and you're getting into real trouble. There's and when you get a stressed vine, it starts making these off flavors, and that sort of starts coming into it. You get those kind of like some like burnt characteristics coming into it, and it can. I think this is a really good way of trying to sort of keep the grapes all nice and.
I like that comment. That this is a decent school night quaffer. Absolutely, excellent. I think that's really important. But yeah, so I think that Schloss Wallraf's fantastic winery, and they make wines in all kinds of styles. So they've got this dry style, and they go all the way up to
super
TBAs of 113 grams a litre sugar. That's just
that's
liquid gold is just absolutely phenomenal. So there's a
and
lot.
They've got quite a lot of the top rated sites as well, haven't they? I think they've got about 21 hectares and the sort of top qualification, which is this gross lager, which is their kind of equivalent of a French Grand Cru kind of stuff. So it's they are a winery who definitely know what they're doing, and the bottle is ribbed for extra pleasure, which is quite exciting. That's quite like that. Look at that. There we go. That. It's a nice distinctive style. I like it.
Absolutely, it's very, very classic, very old school. But yeah, lovely, lovely wine. And you can see from the tasting notes, we don't desperately need to go back to them. We're going to go back to them.
Why not?
But lots of cool stuff, lots of great flavours, lots of lovely stuff.
Yeah.
So
a very nice opener. I like it.
Fantastic.
So a good sort of example of our Rheingau Riesling.
Right, should we head for number 2?
Let's do that. So where are we going to next then? We are going to go
your favourite place,
to the Russian River in California. Now, this is geographically not very far from the Napa Valley. So from the Napa Valley, you can sort of go over the Maikama Mountains, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Just into the Sonoma Valley, and at the north end of the Sonoma Valley, you've got the town of Santa Rosa, and that's where the Snoopy Museum is, for anyone who's a fan of Charles Schulz. Great place to visit. But then if you head up towards the coast again from there, you'll find yourself to the Russian River Valley and up towards Healdsburg as well. And it is so dramatically different because the Napa Valley is hot. And it's in that kind of classic, are we going to say it again, a rain shadow. Just so all of the water falls on that kind of Santa Rosa side, the ocean side, as the misty cool air comes in from the Pacific, drops its rain on the Sonoma side, and so it is actually really quite cold in comparison to Napa. It's a very noticeably colder climate. Which means that it's perfect for, well, not for Cabernet Sauvignon and the classic things that Napa's related for, but it's a really great place to make a much more sort of old world style of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you go Napa, a little bit warmer, and it does very well growing the more Bordeaux-y varietals, Rhône varietals, which are generally warmer. And then you get into Sonoma because you're going a little bit more coastal. So you've got the influence from the ocean, but you've then also got the influence of the Russian River coming through. And that
and the mist sort of rolls up the River Valley. It's really dramatic.
It is. It's if you've ever if you've ever gone, it's so weird. Like you go into San Francisco and then you kind of drive up and go over the bridge into wine country, and you go from it being cold and rainy to this kind of like dense, foggy, misty. Yeah. It feels overcast, but it's not. And then you kind of
burns off, but
it gets to about 11 o'clock in the morning, and it just all brightens up. So if you time your drive out, it just opens up as you get into wine. It's absolutely fantastic. So this is Hannah, and this is their 2020 Chardonnay. And for me, this is when we talk about what California Chardonnay should be. You look at the colour. Wow. This is quintessentially Californian, but done in French and Hungarian oak rather than American oak. So it's not still loads of oak, still a good amount of oak.
It's fairly oak.
But it's not blow your head off. You still got the fruit, you still got the texture. It couldn't be from anywhere else. But this is slightly more elegant, and this would be the difference between having a Napa Valley Chardonnay that's done in all American oak, which I think there's something there that I absolutely love. But I think the Napa Valley Chardonnay is the one who people go, oh, I don't like Chardonnay because I don't like oak. Yeah. This is a sign of using oak very, very well. Does it very, very well. And these guys also tick all the nice boxes. They're California certified sustainable since 1992.
Yeah. And I think that they have this, you have to really. I mean, Californian wines, especially at this kind of level, people put a lot of effort into them. They care a lot. So you notice that the kind of difference is that it's all hand harvested, brought in small baskets so that they, the grapes don't all get crushed up and everything. So it comes short distance to the winery, really small containers. The grapes are all still in beautiful, fresh, whole condition. And then it goes on to a long conveyor belt where people sit and will manually pick out anything that. Should we introduce a term of the day?
You're going to
Mog. Mog. Do you know what mog stands for?
I thought that was a thing like your cat was moggy.
Yeah. You don't want cat in your wine. Mog in winemaking terms stands for material other than grapes. It sounds a bit stupid, but when you get into the sort of the big, you really don't want anything other than grapes in your wine.
Snakes.
And you certainly, when you get up to the big machine harvested, like Lodi, Chardonnay from California, there's some great winemakers there, don't get me wrong, but when they start getting up to the mass-produced stuff, you'd be surprised at the things you find in your in going into your press.
High levels of mog.
High levels of mog, and it can be everything from things like, you say, snakes and animals that you suddenly see disappearing, through to one of my winemaking lecturer at university. He witnessed somebody's bicycle going into the press once and had to hit the stop button immediately, because the way the press works is a big sort of pneumatic piece of basically it's a big piece of plastic inside a metal drum that rotates round and round, and it gets inflated with air pressure. And so having a bicycle in there would probably destroy the press. So not ideal. But in this
would
case,
it make for a steely wine?
Yeah, the very mineral characteristics to it. But so when you're doing this, the grapes bubbling along slowly on this little conveyor belt, it allows you to pick the odd leaf out of there. If you might notice that a cluster has got a little bit of rot on it, so you can take that out, snip the rot off, and have it going through. So it's a really hand laborious sort of process. Not in the same way that the Riesling was in the winery. On the vineyard itself, but in the winery, they're really putting a lot of care into that, and it's all, it's fermented in the oak barrels, which for me gives it this, that kind of slightly sort of struck match kind of characteristic to it.
Absolutely, but it has got this lovely baked. So a lot of we talk about kind of what you say apple, and I think this is a good example. Not all apples are created equal, and you go, this has got apple. You can have this a lot when we go apple. People really pick up like that green apple, Granny Smith skin, that kind of type apple. But this is absolutely baked apple pie. Apple. It's nutmeg spices. It's.
I'm glad to hear that it's better than the £5 special. And now you know why. That's the kind of.
So am I right in saying? I might be right in saying, or I might be misremembering it. Was it not the Russian River that became the wine river a couple of years ago? Because there was a winery burst a load of things, and it just ended up in the Russian River, and the Russian River turned into Pinot Noir. They lost 600,000 gallons of something.
Right. I can remember the incident you're talking about.
I can't remember the winery, but it was Russian River turned into a river of wine, literally. Because there was nowhere else for the wine. The wine comes out, it hits the waterways. And what was an interesting thing about that is it just really showcases how much the waterways are part of the ecosystem. So anything that so the winery bursts, the wine gets. But if you're spraying your vineyards, whatever you're putting in your vineyards, and it rains, gets there. And there's an interesting thing. I don't want to get on my organic high horse here, but I'm going to. So people go, I have an organic vineyard, yeah? And if you have an organic vineyard, you can chuck some metal on it, can't you? You can put some copper on it. You can put copper sulfate on it till the cows come home. And that is one of the biggest problems in wine in California, because that goes in, the water comes through, and then it kind of leaches into the waterways and destroys lots of different things.
I was hoping to find a nice picture, and I can't quite find the right one, but I will try to share it around later. But there's a brilliant map showing the level of kind of poisoning of the soil that has happened with the metals, copper, sulfur that they're spraying with. And funnily enough, it corresponds quite badly to the wine regions, and that is because metal is organic, so you can use that instead of some of the more selective kind of fungicides that people spray to keep the and of course when you're in a place like Russian River, you do need to do some. You need to take care of the grapes to make sure that you aren't getting the botrytis and mildew growing on.
Absolutely. But the thing I'm going to go into here, and we're going to do a whole tasting on it because it's Alex's buzzword for the year, and it's regenerative farming, which is where more and more people are going. So sustainable is lovely, but sustainable means keeping it exactly the same, and we know it's already in a bad state. So sustainable isn't making anything any better. It's just not making it any worse. And it's not bad to be sustainable. But there's a lot of people going after regenerative farming now, which is to try and make the soil better and stronger than it was previously, to leave it better than you found it with. In fact, I like Rodney Strong.
Yeah. Oh, look, there are so many amazing wines. And, of course, we don't get half their wines over here. Mary Edwards, another fantastic
Mary Edwards is great. I love Jay. Jay makes some. They make some great sparkling. They make Pinot Noir. Yeah. You've been to Jay, haven't you?
The tasting menu that I had at Jay Vineyards gave me, I think it was, I think by the time they realised I was in the wine industry, lots of others kept on coming out. And they were going, this is... a good setup for our terroir tasting. This is ones that's done on clay soil. This is one where they had a wine called Strata, which went through all of the different layers of different soils, so that it pulled together influences from all of them. But then you could taste them out individually. It was absolutely fascinating. So to have the ability to go and taste through, this is what this particular area's soil does to the wine. So I think it's a really, really fun comparison to do.
Absolutely.
And we're going to be sort of tiptoeing into that in our terroir tasting in a couple of months or so, isn't it? So,
yeah, tiptoe. Watch out. He might get excited. It might end up being a 6.5 hour monster tasting because he doesn't stop talking about it. Part 3.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So when I start talking about the cation exchange coefficient.
Well, look at this. We've got apple crumble. We've got honey. We've got butter. Even it is, and I think there is a place for this style of Chardonnay. You know, this style of Chardonnay went so out of fashion in the late 90s, early 2000s, because oak became a bad word. So, don't want any oak on my wine. I don't want. But we've got to remember that not all oak is created equal. You can have lovely oak barrels that round the fruit out and add the flavour and do that. And then you can have sawdust.
Yep.
And, all the bits in between. Oak, when it's done right, is hugely important. The best Riojas in the world have a really good oak regime, generally, yeah?
That's possibly question of the day. I love that. So is it the soil, or is it the sort of the microbiome that's going on inside the soil? And absolutely, it is that. And I think that New Zealand and Australia have been doing some genuinely fantastic research into this. What is absolutely clear is that the vine on its own can't just hoover up the rocks. It doesn't really have the ability to do that much other than absorb water. It's an absolute symbiosis between what the vine does for the microbiome, all of the bacteria and yeast and fungi that are living under the soil, of which there are hundreds of millions of cells of this, all living in this kind of coexistence. The vine it generates the sugar, and it sends sugar down to the and therefore energy down to the microbiome that lives below. So it's pumping just as the water comes up, the sugar flow goes down in the vine, and it goes down to the roots, and it gives the all of these microorganisms what they need to survive. And of course, then you've got the insects which are tunneling through. They provide oxygen down to the roots, which particularly if you're in a clay-based soil, the vine really needs a bit of oxygen so it doesn't get waterlogged and start to rot. Absolutely fascinating. But what is clear is that the microbiome will be different depending on the soil. Like what exists, the soil might be more acidic, or might be more alkaline, and that will create a different set. But they will be then taking in the things into the vine, the nutrients, all the micronutrients that the vine needs. So it is going to be a factor of both of them, but without that microbiome, there wouldn't be much going on at all.
And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to link it back to rivers.
Yeah, that's a good call.
And this is what's really interesting as places develop, whatever, the microbiome or the soil style, at the top end of the river ends up further down the river, further down, because with erosion and weathering, that gets pulled, and that enables the biodiversity of an area to change, that something will get either washed downstream for good, or either eroded and take away and it's not good, or moved away and weathered, which is good. So you see these waterways are hugely important for the transport of soil styles, microbiome, whatever needs to go.
Yeah.
Goes downstream, which is really interesting. Really interesting.
People are having some cheese tonight, raclette and Comte. Comte with Chardonnay like this. Oh, that's got to be.
That's. I would put that under the genius box.
Yes,
absolutely,
yes,
absolutely.
I'm going to slightly defend.
Who are you defending? Me.
I'm going to defend modern winemakers actually using some of the oak. So the nice way to do it is the way these guys do it. Put it into an actual oak barrel, and the newer the barrel, the more of the flavouring characteristics that it adds, like particularly that sort of vanilla kind of characteristic from French oak. But not everybody can afford to be doing that, and you would be surprised at how good some of the oak additives have got these days. So you can put in sort of smoky oak like liquids that's not the sort of wines that generally speaking that we do in this series, but they're not as awful as they used to be. There's a lot of research that's gone into them, and of course it's a much more
I think that's the thing. It's where is the balance between it being a pure commodity, drink it because it's delicious and it hits a style and it hits a price point wine.
Yep.
To this is done like this with craft and technique and artistry, and
some of our friends,
a wine that's made. You take the wines that do this. What they're looking for is they're not looking for vintage variation. They're looking for this wine to be created to a recipe and a style. And if you drink it this year, next year, the year after, the year after,
it does the job.
And it's absolutely fine, and it's delicious, and it sits that profile. And you go, I like that one, and then, pick your favorite animal and get going with it. And then there's wines like that, but 3-4 times the price easily.
I know, indeed.
So
I had some friends brought over a bottle of £5 supermarket Merlot the other day from Chile, and you know what? You go into it with an open mind. It was absolutely fine. It was remarkable. They had there was an oaky character to it, which of course does not come from oak barrels. So you're not going to make a supermarket £5 wine in oak barrels in like individual 200-litre oak barrels. That just isn't happening. But they'd given it enough so that it was inoffensive. There was a little bit of the tannin there, so it worked with the food. I mean, it's Merlot. It's not going to be a high tannin wine anyway. It was fine. It had the characteristics of, dare I say it, it was a lot better than a lot of Bordeaux's I've had that are Merlot dominant at a higher price point, a much higher price point. So yeah, you can use oak additives, but it's never going to deliver something as elegant and rich and wonderful as that. So yeah, this is the one I'd take in a heartbeat.
Absolutely. Fantastic.
Yeah, so that was wine number 2. The Russian River Valley.
The Russian River. I like California wine. Right. We're going red. We're going red.
Yeah. Going red.
Here we go.
We're going red early to this. But this is we are now going to Austria and to Domaine Wachau, which is one of your favourites, isn't it? Really,
It is. It's got a little special place in my heart. Yeah. Domaine Wachau. After I moved back from the States and got kind of out of corporate life and into independent wine again, this was the first wine trip I got to go on, and it was the last wine trip I went on before lockdown. So it kind of sat there when we were going through lockdown. I need to get back to a winery. But these guys are absolutely fantastic. So they're in so it's Domaine Wachau in the Wachau region of Austria, and they are based right on the Danube River. And Danube is a long river. Goes through most of Europe. I love the fact
when we put it in here, it's like it goes through.
Oh, you don't, no, yeah. Because I don't tell anyone anything more because it might be in the quiz. What?
Oh, okay.
What? Okay. But it does. It goes through a large amount of Europe. But what I really like, so this grape is Blaues Weigelt, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. It's one of my favourite grapes on the planet. I think it's everything you love about Pinot Noir with a little bit more elegance. Nice fruit, and this little bit of pepper. I've always described Blaues Weigelt that if Pinot Noir and Shiraz had a baby and it was Austrian, it would be Blaues Weigelt.
Yeah, that's
and I think it's really cool.
Oh, the one we did in the advent calendar, I thought was great. It was a real
Oh,
pleasure.
from
That
Via
one.
Haas, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's a great grape, and I don't. It maybe doesn't get enough love because that pops up on the shelf, and people who aren't au fait with it go,
No.
"What
What
is
is
that
that?
weird
Yeah.
thing I'm trying to say here?" But this was really interesting, and talking about rivers as we are on this trip, what we did. So Domaine Vacal have their vineyards all down the Danube, like across quite a large area. So we went all the way up to their most westernmost vineyard called Bruck, and we're up there drinking a glass of wine, and it was cold, cold. So we're up there, and then we came down to the river. And sometimes I tell these wine stories and I sound like a spoiled little child, so I'm sorry if I do. But what we did is we went down the river and we on this boat and we stopped in front of each kind of vineyard site because it's all these hills, yeah, and each hill, Ackleighton and Axe Point and that kind of stuff as you're going down. And we had a glass of wine in front of each of these. So you're sat there on a boat going,
Oh, it's a
I'm
hard
drinking high-end Gruner Veltliner or Riesling, like looking at the vineyard that it comes from. It's very, very cool. But what was really interesting is where there's this bend in the river. And from if you're one side of the bend round to the other side, it's about 2.5 degrees difference in temperature.
Wow, and that's noticeable.
Which means on that end, can't grow this. No chance. No chance. 2.5 degrees cooler. Not a chance. But round the river bend, I sound like I'm getting into a Pocahontas song here. You can grow red grapes. Really, really cool. And these guys are fantastic. You know, they make great wines. They've got a distillery on site as well. And they make a really cool
this is
thing.
Fun. Yeah, I like this one.
This
is VDN.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So they make it's almost like a white port style. But what they do is they make a Gruner Veltliner and then they fortify it with a Gruner Veltliner brandy that they make at the winery. And it is phenomenal. It's such a cool
Did they make that on purpose then? Was this the one which was? There was one where didn't an intern accidentally put?
That was an Oregonian winery that he put one barrel of Gewürztraminer late harvest into some, but that's a different story.
At how many wineries have happy, misfortunate sort of little bits of blending when they weren't exactly intending to. But yeah, a very cool winery. I've had it in Austria a few times. I've not been to the region, but a group trip to
We keep threatening a group trip, don't we?
Great.
We keep threatening a group trip.
We did sell it in Tring Winery. That is correct.
I did indeed.
And thank you for all your comments on the advent calendar. Should we say what the idea we've had for our next year's advent calendar is?
We're going ahead of the game here.
Get a bit ahead of the game. Yeah, I think we could. Why not?
Are they going to hold us to it?
Probably.
Okay.
So we've got a few different ideas. So maybe tell us which one you prefer.
So
but
we can do the same again.
Yeah.
But I'll add Albarino so I can actually have an A to Z of grapes rather than a B to Z. Our other thought, which I think, and we might do multiple advent calendars so you can get 27 different ones to do what you want to do. So we might do similar and do the A to Z of grapes again. The other one we're thinking about is doing the old Phileas Fogg around the world in 24 days because we're sharp like that. Yeah. But to kind of follow the route that he took round and run around the globe and try a load of different wines. Yeah. And
we've plotted out a route of different countries via the wine regions that we think we can take you on a journey to, and it's rather fun. So I think that's going to be great. So we're in planning stages already for that. So 24 days around the world. Can we do a white one and a red one separately? Let's have a think up of that. Where do I sign up? We'll get it on. We'll get it out with an early discount very soon, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do pre-orders in March. I like that idea.
I think the around the world's definitely my favourite idea that we've had so far.
And we're doing the A to Z of winemaking terms.
Yeah, this is his other idea. So an A to Z of winemaking.
A is for acidity. B is for batonage. But that might be a bit super geeky, but who knows?
Well, we're definitely going to do the around the world one because I think that's very cool. But yeah, lots of ideas as always. No shortage of ideas here.
No,
just a shortage of days in the week.
While we're still on this red, am I allowed to do our other announcement?
Yes.
So,
okay, I'm going to drink.
And to be fair, this announcement is all down to each and every single one of you on this tasting right now, and everyone who joins us regularly. So, me and Alex raced back at high speed from Manchester today to be here with you. We were at the People's Choice Awards last night in Manchester, People's Choice Wine Awards. And there
were some quite big brands there, weren't there? You know, all the supermarkets were there, all of the massive
all the cool kids.
The people who do the wines for Gary Barlow and Kylie Minogue were there representing it. There wasn't actually Kylie Minogue there, of course. So yeah, B is for Badger, but
yes, is that a winemaking? Is that a winemaking term, Ian?
G was going to be for Gravity Fed.
It was going to be for Gravity Fed. Look at
that. So yes, this feels very stupid. I can't quite put my hands on my heart, but
we won the online retailer of the year. And we got a piece of artwork.
A piece of artwork by the wonderful cartoonist Tony Husband, who sadly passed away at the end of last year, and who's been doing things for the Private Eye and all sorts of newspapers and things for generations.
But I think the important thing is it was the People's Choice, and it was voted for by the general public. So thanks for voting, because if you hadn't voted.
It doesn't make any sense, but it's wonderful. And, and we just had this absolute look of disbelief with each other.
Against Ocado and Wines Delivered. However, I've got one more thing to say, and then we'll get back to the wine. That we say it's your club, and we'll do what you want, but no. Absolutely not. Okay, fantastic.
Well, anyway, huge thanks for all your votes and all your support. It really means a lot to us because it's we're certainly punching against some quite bigger companies here, so it is really just the two of us. And so thank you. So Zweigelt, let's get back to the topic, shall we? What are people tasting with this? Because it's quite spicy.
There's a lot of cherry. There's black pepper. So take your Pinot Noir tasting notes. Take your Shiraz notes. Blend them together. See?
A bit licoricey as well, isn't it? Like, I've got that definite kind of the little stick of licorice that you suck on after you use all the sherbet up, and Parma violets. That's cool. I like blue cheese.
Well, light blue cheese, but not quite sure if it's light blue cheese. Light blue cheese, eh? That's what that tasting note is.
I do get it. There's something
savoury, penicillin-y, medicinal almost.
Absolutely, yeah. Family, well done. I do think my daughter might have voted for it. I'm not entirely sure. She was past the age of 18, but
I'm sure she. Well, given the choice, she would have voted for Ocado, wouldn't she?
Yeah, well, true.
Fantastic. But I just think the showcase it's a grape that without the river, you wouldn't be growing red wine there.
No,
you wouldn't be able, because it wouldn't absorb the heat and keep it warm enough through a long enough growing period for it to be able to get that. And you get 13% out of this, so it's got a bit. It's not big and bold, but for where it is in the world, it's to be able to get a 13% red. It's pretty good, I think.
I think so, and it's not in the southernmost parts of Austria. As you go down in Austria, ironically, of course, it gets a bit cooler because you're going up into the Alps, and I stayed down in the sort of the southern Kenton region of it, basically down in the town of Klagenfurt, which is a really beautiful place by this lake. And really, they just had white wines around there. I was expecting it to be a bit warmer and to find more of this, but the Blauer Zweigelts that we were drinking were from further north in the country, but where it's a bit lower. So Yeah, we had an absolutely spectacular one up on top of a hill in an old converted monastery with the sun setting in front of us over this lake. Absolutely phenomenal. It's a beautiful country. I love Austria, and the wines are dramatically underrated, I think.
I think they are. I think the Grüner Veltliners are their own style, but they're absolutely phenomenal. And then just the different levels of Grüners, the different styles of Riesling you can get depending where you are in the country, whether you're in Camptal or
Yeah.
It's really really cool. But
Shall I show you some of your holiday snaps? Let's start by the river, shall we?
Yeah, that's the Danube. That's a river.
That's a cracking shot, mate. I like the stone. That's
good. Exactly. Arty. You can say I am obviously the photographer of the year here. So that is also a river.
That is also a river. Thank you. That's great. But yeah, you get an idea that the there are some vines there in the background.
So what's interesting? So those vines in the background that are kind of flat, obviously not the most ideal place to grow vines, but they are managed. They are managed by the local school. So like the kids have their own vines. So they go out and they learn viticulture as kids, and it's the same way that we plant sunflowers. They go and they're looking after their vines. So the different classes have their own rows of vines, and they go and they care for them, they prune them, they do this. Yeah, it's really kind of cool.
That is absolute genius. I love that. I mean, I remember when I was at sort of age, I think 12 or 13. We made some wine in a biology lesson, and I thought that was a genius thing to be doing, and that was probably risque enough back in the 90s, let alone nowadays. It probably wouldn't happen. But yeah, we're going to the wrong school, because if you're learning viticulture and looking after vines, and I think that's fabulous. That's great. Yes. John that went to the wrong school. That is where to go. Oh, lots of people want to go to Austria.
Is this the point that I tell them all that I'm going to Austria?
Oh, are you going to Austria?
I'm going to Austria. Yeah. But it's for work.
It's for work. Okay. Yeah. No. So Wines of Austria are taking you, aren't they?
Yes.
Yes. There you go. So that's great. But it means that he'll find some amazing new wines for us as well. So St. Laurent is that's a great call as well. It's also that sort of lighter style, isn't it? But what does St. Laurent? There's one the cross that goes into something else, isn't there?
St. Laurent and
actually, it might be
St. Laurent and Zweigelt is Blaufränkisch.
Blaufränkisch.
Yeah. I think. Don't hold me to that one. Don't hold me to my great crosses. No, and I just think this is a great alternative for a Pinot Noir. That's something a little bit different and doesn't have your general Pinot Noir price point, which is kind of nice. What was it? We'll go on to the next one. I was going to say we did have when we were selling it out of the shop. We did this wine 3-4 years ago on an in-house tasting, and someone came and enjoyed it, and that became their wine. They were buying 36 bottles of this a month. So when we were looking at our numbers as to people bathing, people like, oh, what's your best-selling wine? Well, Tring's best-selling wine is Blauer Zweigelt, not Pinot Grigio, not Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, not Argentinian Malbec. Blauer Zweigelt was a. And then she stopped buying it. I'm like, what do I do now?
Next?
What do I do now? What do I do now? My supplier's going, sorry, we've just bought in 84 containers of it. You're going through it so quickly.
But yeah, it is a crowd pleasing one. I like it, and it shows what you can do in Austria.
I think Austria is such a great wine country, and it's one of the bigger wine producing countries in Europe. I think maybe 7th or 8th in the world.
Yep.
Just not a lot of it comes out, and there's not a lot of very cheap. There's not. It's kind of it's kind of a difficult one for people to get into. Without having, to get the tasting. So
Jonathan helped us buy through that stock, so thank you very much on that one.
You know what? Wow. The pain he went through. The pain he went through.
I think the key part, so from the page 3 that we're looking at, where I think the really interesting thing about the Wachau thing is, as you were saying, it's the terroir influence. The fact is the river, follows this shape that's kind of geologically created, and it changes the aspect ratio of those vines so much that it can be the question of not just like the slope level and how far south it's pointing, which is what traditionally we kind of think of, but is it facing the morning sun? Is it facing the evening sun? And these have really different effects. Like, let's say that you do have a little bit of mist in the morning. Having that morning sun can help the grapes dry out faster, and can be really, really useful for the kind of botrytized wines that are so critical. Like, if you let that moisture sit around too long on the grapes, they just turn to mush. You get this sort of grey rot coming in, and it's horrible. And particularly that happens towards the end of the year. And so what not a lot of people know this, Michael Caine, but the closer you get to your harvesting date, you cannot spray your grapes. You can't spray them. So each different formula that you're going to spray on the grapes to protect them will have a minimum number of days between when you spray it and when you can harvest it. So you have to stop and trust the weather.
What? So you don't fill people with heavy metals?
Yeah, exactly. So and that number of days sits, legally speaking, regardless of if it gets washed off by rain or whatever. So you have to mark down, you have to record, obviously, and keep logs of what you sprayed on which date, and make sure that these wines are safe. Because Austria did get into a little bit of trouble, but we won't go there. We'll talk.
That's a story for another time.
Another night, but you can look it up anyway. But yes, people are very, very careful about that, and so that cooler time of the year when you do get the mist forming, you can't do anything to protect the grapes. It's nerve-wracking, very, very nerve-wracking. And of course, then comes back a bit of hand sorting will help you keep that. And the people will sort in the vineyard. They won't harvest grapes that don't look good enough. So yeah. Anyway, let's move on to wine number 4. Where are we going now?
We are going to France.
France. We went to France a couple of weeks ago, didn't we?
We did.
Feels like a lifetime ago.
It does.
So we went to an exposition called Vinexpo, which is probably the second largest. Would you say the second or third largest wine?
Yeah, that Pro Wine in Vinitaly are three big ones.
They're all well. It was a very interesting, eye-opening affair, wasn't it? The sheer scale of it is unbelievable, and all of these people who are really trying to find importers into all the different large markets of the world. So you've got buyers coming around, and everyone's trying to get you over onto the stand to taste the wines, and it was phenomenal. It seemed like we were talking to a guy who does a lot more importing than us, a wonderful guy called Nick Razouk from Reserve Wines in Manchester, and he was saying that it's quite shocking that in France now we have found that virtually, certainly a large majority now, if you aren't doing it organically and sustainably, then people will. That's the oddity now, is if you're not doing that, because people know that they have to be protecting their vineyards, and it's just the entry level starting point now. Is that if you want to be doing this, you've got to be doing it right for your vineyards, and people have really got the message on that, which is great to hear. And there are some phenomenal quality wines at very, very low price points, but we don't necessarily have access to them in this country unless we import pallets and pallets of them. Oh yeah, let's move it on to the next one. Good call. So
don't do that. Look at me trying to do things left-handed. That's not a good idea.
Oh, and that clicky Cab Franc from the Loire.
The Loire.
Some more Champigny.
So the Loire Valley is a cool region because it grows lots of different things depending on where you are. You've got Pinot Noir, you've got Chenin Blanc, you've got Cab Franc. So we can make a vast styles of wine. There's sparklingness, still dry, still sweet, dessert wines, all kinds of good stuff in the Loire Valley. And I think when we talk about Loire, the places that really kind of hit that people go, they've heard of Sancerre, they've heard of Puy-Fumé, might have heard of Muscadet, maybe Vouvray, kind of the big names that stand out. But you've got all these other great little places. You've got Anjou, you've got Touraine, you've got Cancy, and then places like this, Saumur, Champigny. And so mainly Cabernet Franc. Well, when it's red, Cabernet Franc. They do grow a little bit of Chenin here for a while, but Saumur is mainly red. And so we're in the Loire Valley. But what's interesting once again, if you look at a map of the Loire Valley, it kind of looks like it's it's a straight line from west to east, from Nantes on the Atlantic Ocean, coming into where Sancerre is on this. But the river itself actually starts about 200 miles south of Sancerre.
Mm-hmm.
So when you learn about the Loire Valley, it's there, and that's the Loire River. But the source of it is 200 miles south, almost down where the Rhone Valley is.
Yeah.
And so it comes up, and then it bends west. There we go.
Map at this
bends west and goes out that way. But this is
If you want to see the map, go and watch our Rhone masterclass. Or some of you probably were on it, but yeah, it's we did have the map then. Should we just? I've just put this in this because we don't normally show these things. So this is the tech sheet. Quite often, you don't get many details of the wines, but obviously the percentage alcohol, that is fairly obvious. What you've then got is a confusing set of numbers there. You have something called acidity and pH. Now,
I can do bottle size. I've got bottle size. I can sort that.
Self-explanatory. But the difference between acidity and pH might not be immediately obvious because it's not.
Isn't acidity how much? Isn't pH a measure of acidity?
How acidic it is. Obviously, 7 being neutral and 14 being strongly alkaline and 1 being strongly acidic. And yet you've got this confusing measurement of grams per litre. And that is a very confusing thing because an acid is not just an acid. There's lots of different acids. There's sulfuric, hydrofluoric. Tartaric is a big one in wine.
Citric.
So what's what the difference? The pH is really your sort of concentration of hydrogen ions, and but in terms of what we really care about, what we taste is the sort of the total titratable acidity, which is how much alkali does it need to neutralize that? What is this kind of the actual quantity that you have to do? So you have to kind of convert it into an equivalent. So that figure there is in terms of the equivalent of tartaric acid. So there's the equivalent of whatever that was, 3.8 grams of tartaric acid for every litre of wine there is. Confusingly, the French use sulfuric acid, so that will give you a completely different number. Helpful that.
So
that's how fresh it feels, how much it makes your mouth.
So I'm just going to chuck this out, and you're probably going to tell me it depends. It depends. So 5.8.
Yeah.
Is that a highish number, a lowish number? What kind of range do we see? Where is there is there a minimum amount there needs to be for it to be a wine and have anything at all? And where does it get to a stage that it actually becomes unpalatable? What kind of range do we see wines running?
Yeah. Oh, well, that's clear then. Sorry, I didn't do a great job. So the pH is what you'll see when you measure it with a meter that tells you, how, and the pH is important for how resistant it is to kind of bacteria and yeast growing in it, stuff that will turn the wine into vinegar, basically. So a lower pH, your Rieslings might be about 3.1, 3.0, possibly even below 3. 3.5 is about pretty typical for red wine. They can go a little bit higher, but then they start going a little bit unstable. Your question about the acidity in terms of how it makes your mouth water, you want it to be in balance, don't you? And so one of the things that balance against acidity, tannin, sugar, obviously, there's quite a few different ones, but 5.8, it's not on the high side, that's for sure, but I'd say it's probably pretty bang on where you'd expect a red wine to be. A Pinot Noir, maybe a little bit more. When you're talking about a sort of a champagne base wine, let's go for that. You might be, especially from England, like the English sparkling wines, might be sort of up kind of like 9, 10, 11. And you go a bit beyond that, if the grapes were a bit underripe and they've still kept their acidity, you have to de-acidify the grape must. You have to actually kind of cancel that out. Otherwise, it will strip your teeth. So tasting base wines for sparkling wines, I honestly don't know how winemakers
I
of that.
I
region do
think
it.
I think
I can't get it.
we're getting tangenty again, but I think there's a level of genius to that.
Yeah.
That people can taste on a vine and go, yeah, this is going to turn into this wine. Okay,
Yeah.
I get how
Yep,
can they
yep.
do that,
I've got the fruit flavour
but
there.
they
Okay, that's
make
cool. That
this
makes sense.
absolute paint stripping,
Mm.
burn your eyes acid wine,
That tastes practically nothing. Absolutely.
and then 4 years later it's Krug, and you're
Yeah.
like,
How have
how?
you done that? And yeah, okay, there are obviously the effects of and any barrels you've used, the effect of age, the effect of the
But
aging on the lees
but
in your
it's like,
bottle for your after your second fermentation. But
it's going to
the
do all
base
this stuff
product,
over a number. It's not like
no,
I'm going to put
it's
this together, and if it's not quite right
Yeah.
in a week, I can fix it. You do it, and you kind of you've made your bed, and you've got to see what happens. It's
There's
absolutely
an awful
amazing.
lot of accumulated knowledge and skill that goes into that. So yes, completely off topic. Right, so Cab Franc. Shall we talk about this wine instead?
We could rather than English sparkling.
Okay, Cab Franc. One of the parents of Cabernet Sauvignon, the other being Sauvignon Blanc. Quite often has a very kind of green element to it, a really sort of like tomato leafy, green pepper kind of character to it. This does not. This has really got that under control, doesn't it?
It does. It's still exactly what you expect from the variety, though. You still have it. It still does have that little bit of greenness. It does have that little bit of capsicum in there
to keep it fresh.
To know that you're drinking Cab Franc. But it's not. Sometimes they're so. Or when they become New World, they become so fruit bomby and flabby and aromatic. I think this is quintessentially what Cab Franc should be for this. Blind tasting. This is what the kind of style that you want to have. But yeah, I just think it's just great. It's a great drop of juice. It's good.
What do we know about these producers? Then?
What do I know? So what do I know? It's Cab Franc. It's hand harvested. Done in small.
Mallet and Hervé Melange, a young winemaking couple who met while studying together in Bordeaux. Neither of them actually originated in the Loire Valley, but they bought the Domaine des Sables, which is right in the middle of the Saumur-Champigny region. And they bought that in 2019, so they're quite new to it. I'm just trying. I can't remember what Sable means. Does anyone know? Anyone remember what Sable means in French? French.
No, that's it. The interesting thing about
sands. I thought it was sands. So
green sands because it's on a green sand soil.
That would be why. Excellent. There we go. So it's green sand.
He could have just.
Why would the sand be green?
He could have just asked me.
That's
okay. But what's cool about this is for Cab Franc and for a richer style of red wine, this is all done in stainless steel to keep the freshness and the purity of fruit, which is really cool. Let's see, we've got some translations on there.
It's sand. It is sand. You're right, and also it's sand. Yeah. So this brings us back to the rivers again, doesn't it? Because it's all about erosion and deposition, and these soils will have been the sands will have been dropped there by the river over the millennia. So sandy soils are very good for drainage. They're very bad in the middle of a drought. That is for sure. You would probably really struggle with these, but a lot of these are quite old vines as well. So the glue refers to a kind of it's just supposed to be nice, easy drinking. We've had a few of them.
Absolutely, this is it's the amount of people I've spoken to, like the supplier who get this from. You talk to anyone who works for that supplier that at some point in their career, this has been their house wine. It's like I just have a case of this, and it's just my drink it, knock it back, get on with it. It's it's drink a glass, goes well with food, and it's a nice one that kind of can sit in the middle of the table and everyone can have a glass of it. It's when I say it's no frills, I don't mean that in a bad way. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's not. This isn't something that I'm going to sit and I'm going to write 94 pages of tasting notes about.
No.
But the thing is, we've got a lot of tasting notes in there. But it's cherry, dark cherry, red cherry, black plum, dark plum, prunes, plum, cherry. Gluggable.
Maybe.
I don't know.
So it was hand harvested and gravity fed into the vats. They had 3 days of maceration, which is this period before you start the fermentation process. So it's typically done at a slightly lower temperature. It just you just let the skins and the grapes all just mix. You might crush them a little before that. I think it's it just kind of it helps you extract some of the fresher flavors, that nice low temperature maceration. And then this has been fermented using indigenous yeast. Right, what is an indigenous yeast?
You're answering all the questions today, aren't you?
See, there's things to talk about.
Yeah.
So, do you want me to do all this, or do you want to?
Indigenous yeast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that because I'm obviously the winemaker here. So, when you make a wine, obviously you need your yeast to turn your sugar into alcohol. No yeast, no alcohol. Makes very, very sad people.
Sad.
Some people, and especially when you're brewing a beer, for example, and you want to have a particular flavour, you'll use a commercial strain of yeast. So it's a yeast that has been made to do a specific job and have a specific outcome.
Yeah, or it's just been selected. That, they know what it does. So you've chosen that yeast.
Exactly.
It's been cloned.
So, but then you have, in the air, everywhere around us, there is yeast till everywhere, okay? And sometimes people will just let the natural yeast that is in the vineyard do what it wants to do. And that is what's using indigenous yeast. And that can be, until you get to know your vineyard, can be quite risky at the beginning until you know what you're going to get, because some yeast ain't great.
Yeah, I mean,
and you end up with off flavors, or they can dominate another yeast. And it's not always just one yeast. You'll have different yeast in there, and one will dominate, and then the other one will take it over and stuff like that. And it can continue changing, Well,
you'll find there's a lot of the yeast strains that happen will have different tolerance to alcohol. Generally speaking, a wine yeast will have been selected that has got tolerance up to sort of 15-16%. That's kind of the one of the starting points, but maybe some of the ones that are just floating around might die out at 8 or so. And Sophia is quite right. You can get hundreds of flavors that come just from the yeast as well. I mean, they might often need a precursor in the wine to start turning into that, but particularly things like esters, this group of flavors will come from the yeast. The one of the big challenges of just sitting and letting. So you've got the yeast, like Jamie said, in the vineyard. It sits on the skins of the grapes. You crush the grapes into a vat. You sit it there with the skins. Those yeast will start doing something. But you look tired. It's almost like we were out partying last night. Where was it? Yeah. So before those yeast really get going, and they will tend to dominate and beat out the bacteria that were doing horrible stuff, but they have to build up to a level. So you can find that the bacteria that were sitting on it might start making horrible things like, might make sort of vinegary flavors, sort of ethyl acetates, like kind of acetone flavors that start coming in there where it hasn't quite kicked off. So a lot of the vineyards will actually harvest a few of their grapes a little bit early, and they'll put them in a bucket. Give them a good old crush. I'll stick them in a bucket in the vineyard, onto which lands all of the native yeast that are in that environment, and it really does capture it. Of course, this starts a ferment going, but it gets it through that initial phase where maybe there were some undesirables in there until the actual fermentation is going quite strong. Now you've got a good population of yeast that you can add into when you do the full harvest. You pop that in, and it will start going a lot faster.
A bit like your sourdough starter.
A bit like your sourdough starter, exactly. So there you go. Wow. Wine, a bit like making sourdough.
Bit like making sourdough. I like that. So on that note, I'm going to pour wine number 5.
I think we should. But yeah, a very pleasant wine. Lots to talk about.
Very drinkable, and I think the point on that, wines like this, usually a crowd pleaser. Completely agree.
And the native yeast, because you've got so many different strains going on, that often leads to complexity. So again, you can see it in the level of different wines flavors that we've got listed up there. So that's kind of cool. It might be very different each year as well, though. That's one of the other things.
I think that's the thing, and that's why if you use a commercial or a selected yeast, that's usually for your wineries that want to have consistency.
Yeah. Indeed.
So anyway, where are we going next?
Avez-vous la bouteille, monsieur?
Oh yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Jolly bon.
So,
Cool.
as you know, when we're in trends,
Yeah.
when
What
we're
are
in
you
trends,
banging
we
on
had
about
something
Portugal?
Portugal. We were banging on about Portugal because we think Portugal is up and coming, and we tasted like last night. We tasted some absolutely spectacular Portuguese wine, some really, really good stuff. From very, lots of indigenous grapes there that are, people haven't seen, difficult to, pronounce, all that kind of good stuff. But fingers crossed we're going to see, because they're really good drinking, and generally really quite good value.
They're still great value. And it's been noticed. I know we talked about this in the trend session, but when we went to the Vin Expo Paris, the sheer size of the Portugal wine section was absolutely astonishing. And yes, exactly. You end up quite often with fields blends where these vines have been there for years. People didn't really sort of know what they were, and so yeah, you'll harvest an entire field and not just different kind of clones of vinyl, which you'll often end up with. Oh, I should move the tasting notes on. Let's do that. But yes, potentially different wines altogether, different grapes. So this one gives us a split of the grapes, 40% Touriga Franca.
We've got some Barocca, we've got some Tinto Roriz in there. And Tinto Roriz is the same as Tempranillo, which is the same as Tinto de Toro, which is the same as Tinto de País, which is the same as Udo de Lebre, which is the same as Sensavel, because everyone loves a different name for Tempranillo, wherever they go. So where are we? River-wise here, we are on the Douro.
We are.
Which, when it crosses border, changes to the Duero. So Ribeira de Duero is on the same river as the Douro as it goes through, and hence a really good trade route between Portugal and Spain, and changing of ideas
and of course, ending up down in port where we were exporting wines out.
And obviously, Tinto Roriz being Tempranillo comes down the river, and you're in Ribeira de Duero, which grows Tempranillo.
No,
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So, right, let's have a taste of this one.
Sorry, so I've got sparkling Touriga Nacional. Now that didn't find.
Well, we don't spend much time looking at sparklings. We did stop by the champagne stand just because, well, the section just because we wanted to.
But I think
a lovely couple of family.
But I think that style has got some legs. If you think of what Touriga Nacional is, it's bold, it's rich, it's got great fruit structure, it's got great spice to it, it's got a nice little bit of sugar, and there seems to be this, renaissance in Australia of sparkling Shiraz. I can see why that would be really good.
Yeah. Check out Marta Vines. Yeah, they are a very, very good specialist in this. We like we said, we've been working with Oakley Wine Agency, who have a lot of holdings out in Portugal as well, and I think it's really, really cool. This does not list the. A great question. Does it have any residual sugar? I suspect so. Let me do. Right, you may want to look. I'm going to show you the bottle again, just so while I stick my tongue in, so you don't have to put up with that.
I think there's not a huge amount, maybe 7 or 8,
maybe even less. Yeah, but it is a bit of a trend, isn't it? That they are. Well, Oakley's red Portuguese blend, which has a little bit of RS in it, won the everyday drinking red, wasn't it, or prize last night, and it absolutely deserved it. It was absolutely bang on. But just a little bit of sugar, just a spoonful of sugar, not only helps the medicine go down, but it enhances the sensation of fruit, doesn't it? So if you had the kind of aromas of strawberry, but you didn't have any sweetness, it would still smell of strawberry,
but it brings it back in. It adds that weightiness to the palate. It gives it a little bit more richness, a little bit roundness. The thing is, you've got to be, generally, everyone tastes slightly different, but you've got to be above about 7 or 8 grams for it to be detectable as actually sweet.
Yeah.
So, and this is why I'm thinking it's in that 6, maybe 8 range, because it's tough to find it, but you definitely know it's there.
Yeah. my guess would be that it's actually kind of down in that kind of 5-6 range, actually. But yeah, I don't know. They've given us on the data sheet we have that the total acidity or titratable acidity is 5, which again I'm assuming is grams per litre. So a little bit lower than the Loire wine we just tasted, and absolutely the case, because you'd expect it. Why would you expect it? Because we're further south, it's warmer, and as you get warmer, you generally speaking lose acidity. So yeah, that makes sense. But 5 is still enough for it to keep it nice and refreshing. A sparkling wine tasting. Yeah.
So there's two ways. It could be in bottles, or it could be in person.
Yes.
That's a great idea.
I think if we're doing a sparkling wine tasting, we've got to get in some of the. Perhaps we should redo the England versus the world tasting that we did.
Well, that was
fun. So we, it didn't go the way I wanted. It was another Jamie versus Alex special, wasn't it?
It was.
And I'm a huge fan of English sparkling wines. I really am. I think they are world class. But it was very interesting, the tasting we did. We put some, the Gusbournes, the Nye Timbers up against some.
So we
didn't hold back, did we?
We tried to do the main styles of sparkling, and Alex picks an English wine for every single one. I picked from around the world. So we did a Blanc de Blanc, a Blanc de Noir, a Rosé, a Semi-Secco, a Charmat, a Nature, a Vintage,
a Demi-Sec, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely top.
So we did that.
Yeah, Oster's great. I haven't tried Davenport Sparkling. I've only tried their stills, and I like that. So they're a good organic producer. Will Davenport, has been pioneering that, and yes, Flint. So if you want the Charmat method, Flint is the by far. I think Flint's my favourite. I quite like the what's it called? Fitz is a good one as well. Fitz is fun.
The thing is, there's 101 to choose from now, isn't there?
Yeah, and so Charmat ones are still a bit light on the ground, because basically the equipment to make it. So Charmat method sparkling compared to, we're really going on for 10. But since we're trying to cover
Portuguese rivers.
We're talking about Charmat. Okay,
yes,
great.
Okay.
Charmat method. For those of you who don't know, the fizz for our champagne is a traditional method wine, which includes English sparkling, Cava, method Cap Classique from South Africa. That is done by adding sugar and yeast into your bottle of wine and re-corking it, or putting a crown cap on it. And Franciacorta as well. Oh, yeah. That, it gets the fizz. Now, the other dominant way is what Prosecco is made for, which is the Charmat method, because it was created by Monsieur Charmat, wasn't it? And that basically, you put the sugar and the yeast into a giant tank full. Now, it's much cheaper because you don't have to do that to thousands of bottles. You do it to one big tank. And if you tend to put a little bit of yeast nutrient in as well, because yeast don't just eat the sugar. They need other stuff, which is like sort of nitrogen-based compounds, and there's lots of different things you can put in, like sort of husks of dead yeast. They will actually quite like. There's loads out there. The most kind of simplest and cheapest is called DAP, diammonium phosphate. And there was
your DAPs, your MOGs,
your DAPs. You're learning something tonight. This is
cool.
You
know me.
So when you pop in your DAP into your tank full of Charmat, the yeast love it. They go crazy. So this is why you don't let the intern do that. Or I'm going to see if I can send a link in the chat, in the comments, of a very entertaining incident where the intern chucked in a whole load of the DAP that should have been progressively added over a period of time, and was just dumped in, resulting in the tank kind of exploding, and a prosecco fountain of.
It was very pretty.
It was very pretty. 8,000 gallons. So I don't know what that is in sensible terms. 30,000 litres. So a 30,000 litre tank.
So 50,000 bottles.
Yeah, 50.
50,000 bottles worth of Prosecco.
Spraying out into the air. All because he chucked the DAP in rather than gently feeding the yeast, and they all went crazy. So, yeah, English sparkling wines. There are now people. Flint have now this year have got their own Charmat method equipment in place rather than farming it out to. I think Fitz have got it as well because they do it on their own. MDVC won a couple of awards last night with their
Silver Rain.
Silver Rain spelled REIGN. I haven't tried it.
It was all gone when I went to try and find some last night. Yeah.
Really interesting. But quite clearly, it's a crowd-pleasing formula they've come up with. But it is owned by a big. Yes, well done, Sophia. Go to Flint. If you find Dan Kirby, say hello. If you find Ben Witchell, who's the winemaker, say hello to him as well, and tell him that pouches do work. Because apparently he's a little bit cynical still, but I will talk him. I will convince him that it's genius for a while. Ben is one of the most thoughtful winemakers we've ever spoken to, isn't it? He's so on top of everything from from the soil under his vines all the way through to the bottling. We'll send you some pouches. I'll tell you what, we can pack up some of his Chardonnays just being released. That would be a good one to get in, wouldn't it? It's properly great. Mentos in Coke crazy.
Yes.
So I just watched the video. It really is, isn't it? There's so many favourites, but we would have to do it in person. We haven't worked out fizz in pouch yet. An English sparkling tasting event in London. I think
that could be a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Okay.
Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should do it as a masterclass at the Oxford Wine Festival this year.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, we could do that.
Shall we go up to Oxford? Yeah.
We'll do Oxford Wine Festival.
Okay.
We can start there.
I'll talk to them about that.
Anyway, we're very off.
Right, so okay,
it's ski season and we're off piste.
We are very much off piste.
So yeah,
I like that. It's a good. I think if I'm honest, I think I preferred the one that we did in Trent, but it's very nice stuff.
But if you weren't being honest,
I wasn't being honest. I wouldn't be here. Would I?
Oh, fair enough. Exactly.
Wine is delicious. London would be easier for everyone to get to. That's that. Well, yes. It's supposed to depend where you live. If you're in deepest, darkest Wales, that might not be. But
we could do it late and buzzard, live in the studio with a live studio audience. My word, could you imagine? Anyway, right.
What are we on to now?
Should we move the tasting notes over?
Let's move the tasting notes. Okay, let's have one last look at those. Yeah, it's a slightly simpler set of notes, isn't it? But all very pleasant. You've got some of those tertiary characteristics, the leather. You've got some nice character coming from, the fruit. Obviously, you've got a bit of toast in there. I like them. That's good.
So we are heading to.
Oh, put that on camera. There's the bottle.
You want the bottle as well? Oh, you high demand.
So let's move it on. I like that. Slows, yes.
So
it's a bit slow, Jimmy, isn't it?
We are
slow tonight.
Spain.
Oh, yeah.
And we are Rioja, and the main river here is the Ebro going through. So this is Baronia, who big winery. I think lots of people have probably heard of them, and their stuff is
probably tried some of their wines, but
probably
the Criantha.
They make very classic, stylish Rioja. It is in the nicest way the Ronseal of Rioja. It's fantastic. There's a step up between the Joven, the Crianza, the Reserva, the Gran Reserva. It's soft, it's round, it's got that, balance of oak.
There's a reason there.
90+% Tempranillo, little bit of Manzuela, a little bit of Garnacha in there. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about Rioja, though, what's cool is we go, it's the Ebro River. And the Ebro River is the river that goes through. But you've got 7 valleys in Rioja that are split by rivers. So off the Ebro, you've got all these different tributaries that come down. And therefore, you create these different regions with different soil types, different structure, different styles of wine. And Baronia is probably not the best example of wine to talk this, but there's a few wineries out there that are looking at these. Actually, I'm going to backtrack here.
Mm-hmm.
Backtrack. Old school Rioja
Yeah.
is the bodega, and it comes out from there. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's all under one house, and it goes as far as it goes out from there, and then it all comes in, and they make it, and it's about the oak aging. So it's less about vineyard site and more about the Crianza, the reserve, the Grand Reserve, and it all comes in together. Yeah. And that's your old school Rioja with lots of American oak, lots of vanilla, lots of richness, lots of delicious decadence.
Yes.
You've now got this chain of thought, which is what people class as a more modern Rioja, which is about sense of place.
And I think this is very much relating to this question here. Is this a typical style? It's an increasingly common style now, isn't it?
So,
because it's feeling more of that sort of. It's less about the oak and the blend, and it's more kind of it's definitely.
So you've then got the more modern style, which is more about sense of place, and there's a fantastic winery called Badiola, and they are doing single vineyard sites. So they get the wine from here and make one wine, the wine from here make this, and wine from there make this, and they have, I think it's 4 or 5 different wines that. It's not about Crianza, Reserva, Grand Reserva. It's about this sense of place, it being in that one town. So Baronia sits on the old school style, and it's about the oak and the richness and that style. That it's a house style. It's like Reserva is bigger and bolder, and the Grand Reserva is more and more and more and more compared with that. But having these tributaries that are coming off the Ebro River is allowing this new world, this new modern style of Rioja to thrive because there's a point of differentiation. It's like, well, we're here on this river.
It's never going to be your supermarket Rioja. Your supermarket Rioja is always going to be just aiming for consistency, a good blend, lots of complexity coming from all the different regions coming together. Is this a typical style? I think this is a good style.
I think this is classic.
It's just really well made.
If you're teaching WSET and you want to know what Rioja tastes like, for the joy of a blanket statement, this is probably a bit more vanilla-y than you would get because it's Reserva, so it spends more time in the barrel than a Crianza. So but this style is couldn't be anything else.
I was really quite pleasantly surprised. We were down in south of Spain just after Christmas, and we were ordering a glass of the House Rioja, and the stuff that was coming out was sort of Reserva level. It wasn't, and I probably they were trying to rip off the tourists, but going, €4 for a glass of Rioja, they'll get them something better. And but it was, I don't care, €4 is nothing. Like, I'm afraid for that. It was a stonking value, and the quality of the wine was bloody marvellous. I didn't have a single bad glass while I was over there. The best bottle that I had in Spain, what was that one? How did we celebrate New Year's?
Can you say we?
Yeah, you weren't there.
No, exactly.
Me and my lovely wife, Naomi, we had a bottle of Vega Sicilia Unico 2009. Now,
useless vintage.
There are some iconic wines of Spain. In Rioja, you've got your Castilla y Gay from, was that Marqués Morieta, isn't it? That's a really... Is that who owns that?
I'm not talking to you.
He's just going off in the song. The Vega Sicilia was bananas. It was so good.
That's a strange tasting note.
It was worth the queue in passport control to get into it. So yes, but that was like €300 a bottle, and it was definitely a treat yourself night. The other stuff we were having for the €4 was just marvelous. So yeah, it is. Spanish wine is still great value. It is great value. And the Baroni ones are often on special offer in the supermarkets, so it's one that's worth looking around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get the Reserva on the Grand Reserva level because it is a proper treat.
Absolutely, they're absolutely delicious. And I think there's a question about where's the oak from. It's a blend. It's mainly American, but they have a little bit of French oak in there as well.
Mixed French and American oak barrels. They say 18 months. And again, just to go through, let me.
Oh, don't listen to that. That's an old tech sheet.
Oh, is that the old text sheet? Oh, that was...
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay.
That's the 2017 vintage.
And I shall move that away, and we shall not look at that. Excellent. But if we were analysing that, there were some interesting things there. 5.7, again, pretty similar. Again, that in that sweet spot for the red wine.
But you can see the whole oak thing there. It's all vanilla, all vanilla. Look at that. It just
leather, vanilla, and I think what's quite interesting. Yep, there's a tiny little bit. They said it's 1.9 grams of sugar in there, just
to balance the weight, just so it sits there and it pulls those fruit flavors.
That's not been added. That's not been artificially stopped. That's just when the yeast have decided.
And it pulls that little bit of fruit out that would otherwise get hidden behind the tannin and behind the vanilla, which is really, really cool.
3.6, bang on for a red wine on the pH. And they also give you a figure for the volatile acidity. And yes, I know this is for a different wine, but I'm sure it's not going to be that different, is it? Volatile acidity is it's acid. It's volatile chemicals are the ones which are very light and lift up out of the liquid and come into the air, so you can smell them. So you will find, particularly with some older wines, you might get a little slight whiff of vinegar coming into it, and that's what that volatile acidity is.
You're not going to have anything else to talk about for the rest of the year. You've done all of wine tonight. I've done it all tonight.
Anyway, I think that's a lovely wine. That's just.
But while people sip on this and maybe have any final questions, do you think it's time for a quiz?
We can have a quiz. Have we covered everything on the Riverside? I think we talked about climate. We talked transportation and the formation. I think that's fairly obvious. Water source, again, fairly obvious. Also, it's most European wine regions are not allowed to irrigate unless it's very young vines, where obviously they need a bit of extra support. That's just one of the ways they keep the production at a sensible level. And obviously, we know that they're ripping out lots of vineyards at the moment because not enough people are drinking. Oh, not enough people are drinking.
Yeah, that's for another day now. Another day now.
All right. Terroir, we talked. Microclimate, we talked. Tourism and hospitality. It's obvious. Go in there. It's great fun. Erosion, biodiversity.
We did that.
We've done that. Noble Rocks, the only one we haven't talked about because we didn't have a sweet wine in this because we've done a few of them recently. But the botrytis wines, particularly, it really does. You have to have that balance of the mist and the drying out of it. It so often happens in the regions when you get to your Sautowns, your Montbazillacs, there is a river involved there, and I've been up Montbazillac, and you're looking down towards the river valley, and just seeing these tiny little grapes, they look horrible, but they're dry. Anyway, the quiz. Sorry about the internet not necessarily being quick enough to keep up with it. Do the best you can, and it's all just a bit of fun, isn't it?
No, it's very serious.
We should do just a Sauternes and some Barsac tasting.
We can do all these things. Okay. Right, so, get yourself in. Quiz. We're going to give you a minute to get in. A minute to get in.
Colin's ready. Yeah, you're not winning this month, Colin. Sorry. But thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed tonight. It's been great fun. We've had a lot of fun, haven't we?
You have.
I wasn't sure I was going to. I was so tired about last night, but we've got lots of people in the chat. We'll give it another 20 seconds or so. People coming in. Fantastic. What have we got next month?
Well, next month, Alex's holiday snaps. South Africa.
Yes.
South Africa next. So we've got South Africa next. We've also got now, if you need us more than once a month.
Oh yeah.
Ridiculous. We now partner with Coravan, and they've got a wonderful little machine that allows us to fractionalize less bottles than we have to run when we do our pouches. It's lovely. So we do have a few kind of super premium tasters. They're kind of standalone, so you just grab it, taste it, watch the videos when you feel like doing it. So we've got a Wines of Bordeaux one that's got some Growth Bordeaux in there, some 2007 Lynch badge, absolutely phenomenal. I've just put together a Cult California Cab tasting pack that we have 7 of.
And if there's demand, if you want to talk through it with us, just let us know and we'll pop a time together where we can all just chat through it or something. So, okay, right. Let's get on with the quiz, shall we? All right, everybody ready? What do? I click start quiz.
Click start quiz.
Seems a good one. So, Australia's longest river shares its name with a tennis player, but which one? Is it Tim Henman?
Tim Henman is not there. The Henman River.
So we've got the choice of the Ash, the Celes. What on earth are you on?
There we are. And you got to get involved in clicking along.
Congratulations. There we go. It is the Murray, shared with Andy Murray, the Murray River. Excellent. Okay, next question.
You're not there. You got to do that, and then you got to find out who's in the lead. Come on, click it again.
Oh, okay. You steer it then.
Really? Colin, have you swapped over? My word. Here we go. Question 2. Which two rivers form the boundary of Bordeaux's Entre-deux-Mers region?
Between two seas. So presumably it's two seas.
The answer coming in. We've got 13.
No points for pointing out that the Garonne is spelt wrong. You got it Garonne.
That's how they're always a bit of a blend here.
Oh.
Daria into the lead.
Nice.
Oh.
Excellent. The Danube River does not flow through or border which of these countries? Serbia, Romania, the Czech Republic, or Bulgaria?
Also goes through Austria.
This one. It does go through Austria. It definitely goes through Austria. It goes through. Does it go through Ukraine? I think it does.
It does.
I think it might say this in the brochure, but if you read the brochure, you snooze, you lose.
Exactly. Here we go. All 16 are in.
2, 1. Excellent. And
there's a blend. It does not go through the Czech Republic. Check that out. Where are we going?
It's the river that goes through Prague.
Not the Danube.
It's not the Danube.
That's all I've got for you. Right, here we go. Oh, it's close. It's close. It's 2 out of 3. So everyone could win here. There we go.
If you don't get this one right, then
you're banned. So is this a self-absorbed question here?
Yes.
There we are. Ian Wareham going to put a card on just for fun, isn't he? He's that kind of guy. There we are, 16. Look at that. Everyone's a winner. That's all about speed there, isn't it? That's a speed question.
Well, I tell you what, at least the service is personal. We don't always get it right, but we will always make it right.
I don't know. Oh, I didn't change the question. Right. This is from last month.
Okay. Well, if you got this right last month, you'll probably get it right this month. If you got it wrong last month, you ought to get it right this month.
There we are, exactly.
Great. Okay.
That's what I do with the quiz,
But just it's called what do you call it? Reinforcement.
Reinforcement. Has it been reinforced though?
No.
Not really.
It's the 1855
classification.
Daria into the lead.
Daria in the lead. Whoa.
This was in last month as well.
Oh, what have I done? There we are.
Not knowing the answer to not knowing how to put the right question.
Not knowing how to do the quiz together. This is what happens.
A little bit less dancing around to
the Killers,
Mr.
a little
Brightside
bit exactly.
And last night, and
Novenophobia is. Why? Oh.
Okay, and another one. What is this? A needle for pushing Riesling directly into Jamie's bloodstream. A wine preservation system. Device to check the wine in our pouches, or a random needle we found out behind the warehouse. Do you know what we do find out behind the warehouse? It's quite funny. It's the gas canisters from the Coravans.
There we are.
I'm really surprised at how many of the teenagers from Lace and Buzzard
are doing fine wine tastings.
Doing fine wine tastings with a Coravan behind our warehouse. It's very strange.
To be fair, there's 2 answers here. It does put the Riesling straight into my bloodstream, but it is in fact that is a Coravan system. Indeed. So, final question coming up. Where have we got?
Oh, it's
close. It's close. It's close. It's close. The pain. Here we go.
The Nile is not just a river, but through how many countries does the river flow?
And if you don't know this, you're in denial. No. I know. Can we do? Did it?
She's been doing Egypt and Nile and everything.
What are we? Oh, it's a big mix here. Oh. The answer is 11. So what does that do?
Oh my word. Daria! Hey! So as usual, for those of you who haven't joined us before, the winner gets to gift a tasting kit for next month's tasting to one of their friends. And,
Absolutely. So,
yeah.
Daria, pop us an email and give us a shout and just let us know who. Actually, if we have a look, it kind of looks like it was a tie.
Yeah, let's go back.
Because that is a tie.
Oh, come on, that is a tie.
Okay.
You're quite right.
So we will do.
And we're not going to fanny about on milliseconds. Here,
No, we're not. No. Ian, far too slow, so he doesn't get anything. Nothing for Ian. But top two, pop us an email, and for both of you, we will send next month's tasting to not you, but a person of your choice. Okay?
We're married. That's news to my wife, but.
There we are.
Okay.
Hang about. Same answers, same speed. That's fine. We can send 2 sets out to some people that you'd like to do the tastings with.
Well, look, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next month for a bit of South Africa. Definitely go and pick some lottery numbers. And
should we put the prices up?
Let's do the prices very quickly. You're probably not going to be surprised at what the most expensive one was, because
California Chardonnay.
Oh, we haven't put the wine of the night, have we?
Oh yeah, let's do that as well.
This time we're doing it with the prices, so you get to decide whether you'd rather have, 1 bottle of Domaine Vacal Blaus Viscount or 2 bottles of the Hannah Chardonnay,
or the other way around.
No, I meant it that way around. I really did, because I really.
You would like all of it. You would like all of it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's out of date as well. We're also now doing free shipping for any order.
£60.
And over. So
£60. So if you like the wine, give us a shout.
Of Chardonnay, and it's on its way to you for free.
Done. Exactly. So
let's have a look. Who's winning? We've still got 3. Oh, interesting.
Still got some people ranking.
Yeah, I think so. Ooh, it's getting tighter. Oh my goodness me.
As always, if there's why do you like there was a bit of a chat in the chat earlier that people were like, oh, we want some Franciacorta. If you want Franciacorta, let me know that you want Franciacorta. We'll get you some Franciacorta. We're apparently the online retailer to go to. So if there's wines that you've had from the tasting that we don't have anymore, we can get more for you. If there's something that you've been somewhere and you like something and you want, we can try and source it for you. So whatever you guys,
or something that we think will be,
give us a shout, pop us an email, give us a call, whatever you like. If we can get you more great wine, that's the world.
Okay, who won then? Who was the wine of the night? It was the Tempranillo, the Baronia Reserva Rioja. Very cool. Nice one. Well, on that note, we shall say have a wonderful evening, and we hope to see you next month. And sleep well, especially if your name is Jamie Smith and you've been dancing to the Killers last night.
Nothing wrong with that. Anyway, have a wonderful night. Thank you so much. Cheers.